Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of Movie Goodness, where we examine life through cinema here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and I have a question for you. I want to know, where were you? Where were you the first weekend in May? Where were you when hip hop reminded everybody that it is the top genre of music? It has been the top genre of music for the past 40 plus years. It is such a joy in some sense that we got what we received this past weekend from fellow hip hop artists Kendrick Lamar and Drake. It was somewhat of a reawakening to the genre. I will say that, me personally, I had kind of stepped away from hip hop because hip hop has kind of become repetitive. It sounds the same. Every song sounds the same to me. I grew up in the era, and yes, I'm the old man screaming at the clouds thing. Yeah, but I grew up in an era. Well, first and foremost, when hip hop had just came to be back in the early '80s and throughout, when we got Cool Mo D, we got LL Cool J, Rakim and Eric B, and kind of shifting from East Coast to West Coast in the late '80s and early '90s, when we got the Snoop Dogs, the Dre's, the NWAs, and all that good stuff. And then down here, down south, we started getting Cash Money and Master P and No Limit Records and all this here. It was just, it turned global, it turned national, then global, and that's the era I grew up in. It was so many different styles and lyricists, and it was just a great time to be alive if you're a hip hop fan. And now everything sounds the same to me. There's only a certain few that I really rock with, and I mean few. And coincidentally, all of them are involved with this few. The ones that I like are currently rapping, currently putting out music that I really do listen to and enjoy, are involved in this feud, because it's not just Kendrick and Drake going at it, even though they are the ones who are swinging the biggest punches. There are more. You have J. Cole, who I'm a fan of. You also have Rick Ross. It was so many people that got lumped up in this feud. And it didn't just start this weekend or just past weekend. This started, I want to say, about maybe 6, 7, could be 8 months ago. But last week, both of these gentlemen woke up and decided, we're going at it. This is it. Today's the day. I got time today. And hip hop world, the culture, should I say, is better for it. I think we needed this. We needed this. I mean, everybody's talking about this. Everybody. This was this was on CNN. This was on 60 Minutes. Everybody was talking about this feud. It wasn't just relegated to here on this show or on the Breakfast Club or the hood shows. And I say that lovingly. But no, this went global, man. This was a big deal. And it needed to be, because it was some big bombs dropped in this feud. I mean, bombs. So what we're going to do today, we're going to go through the entire timeline of this beef, of this battle. And then I will give my final decision on who I think won this battle, because I'm assuming it's done. I'm assuming. Now, this could change. So much so that I waited to record this episode. This is really, I mean, tight. This is the 11th hour. I'm sitting here recording recording this show. I knew immediately this past weekend I was going to do a show on this feud, but I couldn't record then because I know more probably would come out. I was anticipating maybe another track drop, just like it did over the weekend. I mean, it was fast and furious. It was one after the other after the other. I was like, good Lord, I'm not finished listening to this one. And then another one comes out. And so it was chaotic. So I gave it enough time in case something else happened throughout this week. So yeah, I really gambled with this one, but it's all good. It's all good. We got it together. After we do all this, of course, it's movie goodness. So I got to review a film, and the first film that came to mind, which coincidentally was on TV, it was on one of the channels. I think it was Stars. It was on while I was getting my notes and everything together. It was like I don't know. It was like destiny. It was like it, this is what it is. I'm like, man, I was just thinking of this movie, and it was the 2002 film which starred Eminem in his film debut, 8 Mile. I, I, I was like, man, this is awesome. And so that's the film we're going to review at the end, but we're going to go through the timeline of this feud. Now, I know a lot of people who are not into the culture, who are into hip hop, and wonder why is this being celebrated by a lot of people. Well, I shouldn't use celebrated as a adjective, but yeah, because it sounds weird when it comes out. Because so many of these rap feuds turn violent. They do turn violent. But this one I don't think it's gonna go well. That's a lie. Because something did happen violent wise, but I don't know if it was because of the feud or not. But that's neither here nor there. We'll get to that when we cover it on the timeline. But this this is a part of hip hop, rap battles, ciphers and stuff like that. This is what fuels hip hop. It's like iron sharpening iron. You have your two best, and you can, no matter who you're a fan of, even if you're not a fan of these two, it's kind of hard not to put them in the top five currently rapping. I'm not saying all time. I'm saying currently rapping. Kendrick Lamar and Drake are at the top. So it's only common sense or natural for two of the best to go at it. We watch sports. It's the same thing as watching a championship game. Two of the best teams in the league, whatever league it is, go at it in a Super Bowl, a World Series, a finals, or whatever the case may be, to see who's the best. And that's the blueprint of these rap battles and these feuds. Now they do turn, like as I said earlier, they do turn violent. We all know is well known, Notorious B.I.G. Biggie Smalls and his feud with Tupac Shakur in the late '90s, which turned violent, which turned to the point both men died. Now, was it a direct result of their feud? No, they didn't kill each other, but it was. You can make the argument their beef touched so many, and it just changed the world. It changed the course of their careers and lives, and at the end result, both men perished untimely, might I add. But around that time, that was a feud that was driving hip hop. That was what kept the genre in everybody's mind. It also fueled the East Coast versus West Coast feud, and that was all a part of it. And that lasted for years. It died down now. I don't think there's any coronation. Both everybody loves everybody pretty much now. Another notable feud, you had Jay-Z versus Nas, which was a big one around that time. I want to say early 2000s. That was pretty big, because I remember having discussions with my cousins and nephews about that, because I was a big Jay-Z fan and he was a Nas fan. And I was a fan of Nas, but I was just a bigger Jay-Z fan. And it was who won the feud, who got who worse. And at the time, bias, I was like, man, Jay-Z won. Jay-Z got him. And as I got older, as time kind of healed wounds or whatever the case may be, and I listened to Ether again with unbiased eyes or ears, I'm like, man, Nas got him, bro. Nas got him. It was, but they cool now that they squashed the beef. But it was cool around that time, just for the debate factor. Um, Early on, like in the '80s, you had Cool Mo D versus LL Cool J, or was it Big Daddy King or whatever? I can't even remember now. Can't even remember which was which. Well, it don't matter. But it was just beef. It was just on. It stayed in the booth. It stayed in the recording studio. It wasn't anything like, oh, I'm gonna kill you and all this other stuff, like the Pac and Biggie thing. That got dirty, and I mean dirty, and personal, very personal, and that's what makes this K Dot and Drake feud very interesting, because this got personal. Man, this was some low blows. I was, it had me like uncomfortable listening to it. And they weren't even talking about me, but it had me like, man, man, I had to check myself. But they didn't, it wasn't always like this. This wasn't something that started from the beginning of their careers. Kendrick Lamar and Drake, they've appeared on each other's records before. It wasn't pure hate between these two. They started out collaborating. Drake featured Kendrick on the 2011 song Buried Alive on his album, on his second album, Take Care. It cool. And just after Drake released his first studio album at the time. And the very next year in 2012, Kendrick opened for Drake on his tour. But sometime after that, that's when things started to get a little rocky. I don't know what happened. But over the years, there've been subtle jabs. They've been taking jabs at each other. Nothing to the degree of a diss track per se. It'll just be like a bar in a random song that just a little subtle drab at them, but or at each other, I should say. And then last year, I want to say October, November, somewhere around there was a collaboration with Drake and J. Cole called First Person Shooter. And in the song, J. Cole called himself, Drake, and Kendrick the big three. The top three, in the rap game, so to speak. But Mr. Lamar did not subscribe to that. That wasn't shared by Kendrick Lamar. He was featured on Future and Metro Boomin song Like That, which was released in March of this year, saying there's no big three, it's just me. And so that seemed to have sparked what is now a massive feud that has been going back to back, and diss tracks being released by both Kendrick and Drake for the last couple of months, and especially over the past week. On April the 13th, Drake released Push Ups, a diss about Kendrick Lamar, in which he called him a pipsqueak and said that he wore a size 7 a size 7 men's shoe. He also said Kendrick isn't in the big three, listing other artists who are better than Kendrick Lamar, and referencing Kendrick Lamar's collaborations with Maroon 5 and Taylor Swift. Drake also took swipes at other artists like The Weeknd, who they used to work together at one point early on in The Weeknd's career. About a week later, Drake, he released a second diss track about Kendrick Lamar called Tailor Made, again poking fun at Kendrick Lamar's height, his talent, and closeness to Taylor Swift. Um, he alleged Kendrick Lamar had not released a diss track in response because he was allowing Taylor Swift to release her album at the time, which was on the same day that this diss track had been dropped by Drake. Drake does, however, praise Taylor Swift as the biggest gangster in the music game, and admits he also moved his album release date to allow hers to drop first. Taylor Made, however, featured an AI generated vocals from Tupac, who is Kendrick Lamar's favorite rapper, by the way. The estate of Tupac Shakur sent Drake a cease and desist. And so Drake removed the song from all of the streaming platforms after that cease and desist because he didn't want to get sued for using an AI version of Tupac Shakur's voice. And so, not to be outdone, on April the 30th, Kendrick Lamar he responded. And he responded to Drake's tracks with Euphoria. And I'll tell you the significance of that. Euphoria, you know the show on HBO with Zendaya and Sydney Sweetie and all them that's on that show. That show is executive produced by Aubrey Graham. Now, who is that? That's Drake. And so he released that diss track, Euphoria, and in it, he takes rootless, and I mean rootless jabs at Drake. Kendrick Lamar criticized Drake's parenting of his 7-year-old son Adonis. I'm not a rapper, but I'm gonna say the lyrics. I got a son to raise, but I can see you don't know nothing about that. He said he teaches his son morals, integrity, and discipline, but says Drake doesn't do that to his own son. Kendrick Lamar also took shots at Drake's crew, OVO, October's very own, and criticized Drake for being half white, which, don't get me wrong, I don't think Drake can control that, but I mean, hey, crazier things than happen. And so Kendrick's 616 to LA, he released that. Now, the reason that has significance, just the title of the song is a shot, because Drake is famously known for having songs with times in the title. He has 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. in Dallas, 4 p.m. in Calabasas, 6 p.m. in New York, and stuff like that. And so the song title is a direct reference to these Drake tracks, and it includes production by Jack Antonoff. And now, who is that? He's the same person who produced Tailor Made for Drake. So he is also a frequent collaborator of Taylor Swift, and produced the song that Kendrick Lamar appeared on Taylor Swift's album, Bad Blood. I think the name of that song. I think it's Bad Blood. Don't ask me how I know that, but it is what it is. And so Drake on May the 3rd, he dropped 616 in LA on social media. And in the song, he alleged people who work for OVO record label dislike Drake and may have secretly worked for him being Kendrick Lamar. And so not to be outdone, Drake dropped a song on that day as well. And he released Family Matters. And oh my God, that was about an 8-minute song. An 8-minute just brutal beating. And in this song, Drake, he alleged one of Kendrick's children with his girlfriend wasn't his. It was actually his manager's kid. And this is where it got, I was like, oh my God, they're really going there. They're these some low blows here. You bringing in children and all that. Now, granted, Kendrick did it first. Kendrick talked about his Drake's son first, but to throw out the allegation that this is not even your kid, and the baby's father is actually your manager, that's pretty whoa. He also alleged that Kendrick Lamar snitched on him to the Tupac estate about the use of the AI Tupac voice. And in another line in the track where he alleges that Kendrick Lamar pays for sex. But all of the vitriol wasn't pointed at Kendrick in that song. He also took a jab at The Weeknd again. He also went at Rick Ross, and he said that Rick Ross used Ozempic and it gave him the side effect of jealousy. I was like, man, Drake was on one. last week, boy. I'm telling you, this was the greatest back and forth I've ever seen in hip hop. And quite honestly, at this point, I thought it was over. I thought it was done. I was like, man, Drake, he dropped the mic, man. He dropped the mic on that. That was nice. That was nice. But oh my God, I think that lasted for 10 minutes because about 10, 15 minutes later, Meet the Grams was dropped. Kendrick Lamar dropped Meet the Grams. And he raps about Drake's son saying, Dear Adonis, I'm sorry that man is your father. He gave Adonis advice in raps, and you nothing like him. You'll carry yourself as king. Can't understand me right now. Just play this when you're 18. Um, he also has verses that address Drake's mother and father. Yeah, it was nobody was safe. Dear Sandra, your son got some habits. I hope you don't undermine them. Dear Dennis, you gave birth to a master manipulator. But the bombshell to come out of Meet the Grams, the biggest like gotcha moment is when Kendrick Lamar started off with the line, Dear baby girl, alleging that Drake had a daughter 11 years ago and kept her hidden from the world. Now, this isn't out of the realm of possibility because Drake also hid Adonis for a while. Y'all do remember that. It wasn't till Pusha T, when they had their beef and Pusha T put it out there that he had a son, and that forced Drake to reveal the fact that he did have a son. So this was kind of like, ooh. He gave the alleged daughter advice as well because he was in a charitable mood around that time, and he described Drake as a deadbeat dad who allegedly pays for sex. Now, Kendrick Lamar also has a verse in that song addressing Drake, alleging that he has a gambling and drinking problem, and says that he's only respond this way because Drake spoke on his family. You know, he crossed the line. But since we would cross that line, Kendrick stayed there and dropped yet another one. And this one here was the kill shot in my humble opinion. And I think this pretty much bodied Drake. And, the very next day, Kendrick Lamar dropped Not Like Us. Not Like Us was just brutal. That was a horror movie on wax. Kendrick Lamar made disturbing accusations about Drake, alleging he had inappropriate conduct with minors. He also made similar accusations about Drake's friends and continued to question Drake's talent. Now, Drake did deny these accusations as well as the accusations about his daughter. He said none of that's true, along with the drinking and the gambling accusations, but the pedophile stuff too. But he denied that. But he also responded. And this is what we were waiting on. The very next day, we were waiting on a response from Drake, and he gave it. I personally, before we get into it, I personally felt Drake should have just left it alone. Just let it go. You lost. Because that, I'm telling you, Not Like Us was a kill shot, man. Stop moving. Don't get up. Don't get up. It was over at that point. It's really nothing you could say. There's nothing you could say after this. But he tried. I give him that. Drake did respond, I should say, with The Heart Part 6. Now, that's significant because Kendrick Lamar has a track called The Heart Part 5. And in Drake's new track, he dropped on the 5th of May that features cover art that is a social media comment from Dave Free, who is the manager of Kendrick Lamar, and also the man Drake alleges is the actual father of one of Kendrick Lamar's children, with 2 heart emojis. In the song, Drake said the people Kendrick is getting his information about Drake are clowns. and that Drake's team planted false stories about the 11-year-old daughter to see if Kendrick Lamar would take the bait. He also directly addressed the accusations that he had appropriate conduct with minors. Uh, I've never been with no one underage, but now I understand why this the angle that you really mess with. Basically saying he would have been arrested if these accusations were true. And so that was the last track to drop involving this feud, at least as of today. As of May the 9th, that was the last track that was dropped. But just the other day, on May the 7th, days after Drake released The Heart Part 6, there was a shooting outside of his mansion in Toronto, which left a security guard injured. Now, currently, the police are investigating this shooting. They can't really speculate on if the shooting was motivated by this current feud that is taking place, but we can't say that it is one heck of a coincidence. But yes, as of now, that's everything up to date with this Drake versus Kendrick Lamar feud. And if it was to end right now, if this is it, I got to give the edge to K Dot. I got to give it to Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar, it was so strategic what he did in this feud. The way he dropped each of the tracks. It was like watching a heavyweight fight. You start off with the jab. You jab, maybe a hook here, a hook there, and then you set him up for the uppercut and or a body shot. And that's what he did. He hit him with the jabs, threw him out there, little stiff jabs, but it was jabs nonetheless, and then went for the body and the head. Actually, it was more body. I don't think he went for the head. Well, he did look, the fact that this dude, Kendrick Lamar, on Meet the Grams, that was a kill shot right there. Now, Drake put up a heck of a fight. This was, at one point, I thought Drake won it, but somebody lost their mind and put Kendrick Lamar in front of a microphone again. And that was that. It was like, man, I'm not finished. I'm not done. And it just kept going. And it was like mercy. It had got to the point where Kendrick was like begging him to just stop, man. Just stay down, dude. You are the more you come at me, the more brutal these tracks are going to get, to the point where The Heart Part 6 was more of defending yourself. It wasn't a diss track more than it was defending yourself. And that's why I say Kendrick Lamar won this battle. And I liked The Heart Part 6. I liked every track that was dropped. But that was not a diss track. The Heart Part 6 was not a diss track. That was look, I ain't touched no little girls, no little boys, and all this here. I don't have no daughter and all that. All that. It was just defending yourself, and that's why I say I got to give the edge to Lamar. I got to do it. K Dot, yeah, you won that battle, man. That was brutal. That was brutal. A little note that I left out of this, because I just wanted to talk in that timeline about Drake and Kendrick, but J. Cole was involved in this as well. At one point, J. Cole released a diss track, and I don't think it was a day or two later, J. Cole came back and apologized to Kendrick Lamar, and and took the track down from streaming services, so you couldn't hear it no more. But he apologized and stepped away from it. He said, "Look, this ain't what I do," and whatever, and left it alone. I remember when that happened, and the community, the culture, went at J. Cole like he was wrong, like he shouldn't have did that. That man was smart. I bet you look back now and you're like, yeah, he knew what he knew he knew it wasn't going to turn out well, because Kendrick woke up one day and chose violence. He woke up one day and said, I'm gonna murder a fool on his microphone. I'm gonna teach y'all to keep my name out your mouth. I'm gonna show y'all. And today's the day, and he did it. I gotta say, but it was cool, man. It was a cool back and forth. It wasn't one sided at all. It wasn't one sided at all. I think a lot of punches. I don't see this mending no time soon. Because I mean, this got deeply personal, deeply kids, parents, ghost children, all that, baby mama dramas and all this other stuff. All that was thrown out there. Everybody's business is out there in the streets now. So I don't know if uh my bad dog is gonna cut it. It's gonna take some healing. It's gonna take some deep conversation from some counseling or something. I don't know, but I don't see these brothers mending this fence no time soon. I hope they do mend it. I'm not cheering a feud on it, but I'm just, too much was said. Too much was said in this feud. But that's my opinion about this heated rivalry between Kendrick Lamar and Drake. So, how do I transition into this film? Well, this was a rap battle of sorts. So, let's discuss a movie that is centered around rap battles, and that is the 2002 film starring Eminem in his feature film debut, also starring Mekhi Phifer, Kim Basinger, the late great Brittany Murphy, Michael Shannon, and Anthony Mackie in his feature film debut as well. The Curtis Hanson directed 8 Mile. And this was weird around 2002 because Curtis Hanson, who up to this point I never saw as and he's passed away, I want to say about 6-7 years ago, but I never saw him directing a film like this. This is the same man that directed The Hand That Rocks the Cradle and The River Wild and L.A. Confidential, and he's making this quote unquote hip hop movie, and I was a little thrown off by that. I was like, okay, let's see what we get. And then you have Eminem, who at this point never been in a movie before, didn't know he can act. Now, this is a film loosely, and I mean loosely, based on his upbringing in Detroit and how he became Eminem. So it wasn't much of a stretch for him, but I still don't know anything about his acting. How is this going to play out? Are we going to get a generic little hip hop film? The little cutesy, bubbly hip hop movies, that came out prior or during the East Coast versus West Coast little battles that was going on in the 90s. I was worried about that. I was legit worried about that, and I wasn't too excited for this movie when it was released back then. Now, I was pleasantly surprised when I saw it, but I was very, very skeptical. After viewing this movie, I 110% felt that this should have been an awards heavy film, a real Oscar contender of 2002. I thought it was that good. It's a very good movie. Does it hold up now? Because like I said, I watched it, was it yesterday, day before, whenever. I watched it, and it's kind of dated, It's 22 years old. It feels like it's 22 years old in parts, but I still felt at the time that this was one of the best films to come out of that year. Very good movie. Curtis Hanson, the man is a very accomplished director, or I should say was, RIP. Very good direction here. He didn't cheapen anything. I really felt after watching this movie, like, man, he must really love hip hop. He must, because he understood the assignment, and I enjoyed it for that reason. And this is one of the reasons why, when now you see a lot of diversity, and I'm all for that. I'm 100% for that. But I also can agree that when we have a film, let's say a predominantly black film. For example, The Color Purple, right? You use the Steven Spielberg Color Purple film that came out in the 80s and the recent Color Purple musical that came out last year. Two different films. You know, one is a musical, of course, and the other one came out in the 80s. But I have a stronger connection as a black man. I have a stronger connection to the Steven Spielberg directed Color Purple than I do to the musical, which was directed by a black man. And I don't know why. I just connect to that one better because Steven Spielberg understood the assignment. And so it doesn't mean black filmmakers doesn't mean that you're going to get the black experience wholeheartedly there and vice versa. Now in some properties, yeah, I can't really picture a white director shooting Black Panther. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying I don't see it. That is so African, so tied to the culture and the black community as well. I think you needed a black director for that. But it's for something like this being 8 Mile, which deals with a black dominated genre of music, and have this white gentleman be the center of it. And we know this is fact because, like I said, Eminem is basically playing himself here. And I think that helped the story a lot, especially dealing with what B Rabbit is dealing with in this film. You kind of need that connection. So it made sense. It was more of the rapping that I was concerned with. How was he going to film that? How he was going to showcase that? Beautifully done. I love L.A. Confidential, but this was probably some of Curtis Hanson's best work as a director. I loved how he filmed this movie. The acting here, starting with Eminem in his not directorial, but his feature film debut. And like I said, two or three times already, he's playing himself. But even with him playing himself, it's hard. It's hard to act. Acting is not easy. And I could tell when it came to Eminem. He did the best he could, but it was kind of stoic, very stiff throughout. He had some scenes in here, especially in the scenes where he had to rap and converse with his friends and stuff like that. He was good. He flowed well, but in other scenes, it just didn't really get there as far as his acting. I give him a little curve because it was his first film. I understand, so I'm not gonna nail him to the cross for that. But it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best, and he hasn't acted in a movie since. No, I'll take that back. He acted in a cameo in that film. Oh my God, what's the name of that movie? It was with Seth Rogen and James Franco, and he had that cameo when he came out as gay. it was the best part of that movie. I don't too much like the movie, which is why I can't even remember the name of it right now. But it was a very funny cameo. But this wasn't the greatest of things. But he was all right. He was all right. Kim Basinger, who plays his mother in this film, different role for her. She wasn't the beautiful, glamorous Kim Basinger that we all fell in love with and drool over. No, she was trailer park trash in this movie. Anthony Mackie in his feature film debut, 0504 boy, did pretty well, even though he doesn't rap once. We don't actually see him rap in this movie, even though he is the undisputed rap battle king in this film. He did a good job. I liked him in this role. The late great Brittany Murphy, she really carried this movie. She was the best quote unquote actor in this film. I loved her performance. She really gave a lot to this performance, really did. And you see throughout this film, when I was watching it the other day, I was like, man, really miss Brittany Murphy. She never got the opportunity. She died so young. I think she died what, about 3, 4 years after this? Probably. I don't know the timeline, but it wasn't too far after this that she passed away. But you know, she had the potential of being one of the best actresses working in Hollywood. I mean, I always loved Brittany Murphy, but I did love her in this film as well. Selfishly, my favorite parts of this movie is the rap battle. It really the end, the last battle at the end when B Rabbit absolutely tears uh leaders of the free world, that the group that rabbles his group. He tears them apart. I mean, tears them apart. And it built up to this. It was like watching Rocky. It's this movie has the same formula as Rocky. It has that same feel. At the end, you want to stand up and cheer because B Rabbit is like Rocky. He gets knocked down throughout the movie. Everything's just falling apart around him. You know, he's desperate for money. He's working extra shifts. Him and his mom don't get along. Him and his baby mom don't get along. His crew are a bunch of whatevers, and every time he gets on stage, he throws up, and he chokes and all this other stuff, and only for him to get on stage at that last battle and tears them apart. And to get to the very end, it was like a video game. When you get to the final boss, the last boss on the last level, and before Anthony Mackie character can go in on B Rabbit, before he could tear him apart lyrically, he turned the table on. He turned the table on him in such a cool way, and at the same time able to destroy him at the same, simultaneously, was brilliant, and it was exciting to see, to the point where Anthony Mackie's character chokes as well. He chokes and Eminem wins the battle, whereas it was like David and Goliath. He slayed the beast. It was such a satisfying ending to this film. I mean, unexpectedly good. Unexpectedly good. Now, I do have some negatives. This wasn't a perfect movie. Like I said, the acting was a little stiff by Eminem, which was to be expected. And my biggest bugaboo was this movie it was long. This movie was a little too long. Just a little too long. It kind of dragged in the middle there at parts. I felt the story could have moved a little quicker there, but overall it was enjoyable to watch. Still is. If not for anything, for the rap battles. There, like I said to start off this review, it is dated. If it do feel early 2000s in a lot of ways, if you watch it now, but those rap battles stand the test of time. 8 Mile, released in 2002, starring Eminem, gets a letter grade of a B minus. Really good movie, really awesome movie, very an inspiring movie, and has one of the greatest songs of all time that went on to win an Academy Award. People, yes, 8 Mile is an Academy Award winning film. Lose Yourself by Eminem won Best Song at that year's Academy Awards, and it deserved it. Lose Yourself, I still bump that. That is that song gets me hyped. It motivates you. I love that song. Love that song, and it fit this movie perfectly. But yes, everybody. Old K. Dot and Drake, man. I really do hope this the end. This was enough. That was enough. That was enough. From this beef, man. This was I don't know, man. This is a throwback beef. This really took me back when all of this was transpiring over the last few days, and when you really go back and see the genesis of it all, you're like, man, this been brewing. This been brewing for a minute, and it finally reached its peak. And I hope and pray this is the peak, because I don't want it to go any further and things get real. People start fighting, and God forbid, people start pulling out weapons, and we all know the end result of that. We don't want another Biggie and Tupac. Let it be. The it's over. It's over. Whoever you thought won. It's no need to argue over it. If you felt Drake won, all right, that's fine. It's really at this point, you really can't get mad at anybody who differs from what you feel because they both threw their shots. I just feel, in my opinion, that Kendrick Lamar threw the heavier blows, man. It just felt very, very strategic the way he went at this battle. But I could be wrong, which is rare. But maybe you have a different and better outlook than me. I would love to know your opinion. Who do you think won this rap battle, and do you think this is over? Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search up the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Over on YouTube, subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Also, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to Movie Goodness here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me as we went through the timeline of this rap battle, feud, hissy fit, whatever, between Kendrick Lamar and Drake. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everyone. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.